Oh, yes, sorry. I was being an intellectual. I was reading a very intellectual novel by the intellectual modernist intellectual writer William Faulkner. It was The Sound and the Fury. Very good book. Very, very good book. And I would very much recommend it to all of you. But, of course, we're not here to talk about books today, guys. I love books, and I want to review more books in the future. Maybe even The Sound of the Fury if I have a 3-hour long broadcast to talk about it. It's such a dense, amazing novel. But right now we're going to drink some coffee. We're going to talk about a horror movie. Because what else do I do on my channel? Let's be honest. Pretty bad. Still the Maxwell house. I'm in the same clothes. Anyway, fellas. There might be some ladies, but I'm thinking mostly fellas. We're going to review a fairly, within a couple decades, recent horror movie. It's The Others, starring Nicole Kidman. This is actually a Spanish movie, but very much sort of a British atmosphere to it. Let's go ahead and get this set up, see what I can do here. I did this with the Scooby thing. I thought it was kind of cool, so I think maybe I'm going to try and... Yeah, this might be a new thing. Yeah, very nice. So, ladies and gents, we're going to talk about The Others. As you can see, this is DVD. You can see that weird thing up there. That is actually a mark that it was a former rental from our local Hastings when Hastings was still a thing. As you can see, that blue sign back there, that actually says horror rent. These are that's actually the sign from that old Hastings before Hastings closed down. Rest in peace. But yeah, this is The Others, and I bought it when Hastings closed, and I haven't watched it since. And it's been at least 2 or 3 years since Hastings closed, and it's been that long since I bought this. Still haven't watched it. I was recommended to watch it by several people. The first I really ever heard of it was from a horror website that called it one of the great horror movies of all time. I think it's actually on a couple lists as one of the greatest horror movies of all time in their top 100 lists. I don't know about that. I'm not sure after watching it. I really do like it, but I don't know if it's top 100 material or not. That's just my personal opinion. I was also recommended this one by my buddy John, who is not John Grande, as you guys might know, but John from my personal life. John's a really cool guy, ministry student. I'd love to do some videos with him about him discussing some horror movies with me. We might do that in the future. But he recommended this movie to me because he saw it in high school, and he really enjoyed it at the time. Loved the fact that it sort of turned the idea of a ghost story on its head, which is really cool. I like that a lot. That's one of the things that this movie does. Not going to totally spoil it, but that's an aspect of it. And that's really one of the most interesting things about it. So the movie is nebulously about death and coming to terms with death and coming to terms with sinfulness in your life. There's a really big sense of religious guilt in this movie. Nicole Kidman's character is an incredibly devout, somewhat maybe even radical Catholic. She's training her children to receive their first Holy Communion. So there's a lot of maybe pseudo-Catholic theology in here, some of which I agree with and some of which I do not. But the majority of the movie is just inundated with this Catholic theology and with guilt and death. That's sort of what all this movie kind of has swirling around in it. It's about a woman who lives in a haunted house. She takes on some new servants. This is in the 1940s, so sort of right at the tail end of when people would actually have servants as a widespread sort of thing. There might be some still fairly affluent people who may have servants nowadays. I'm not for sure, but it's definitely still a thing in this British society here. Nicole Kidman, who is, I believe, Australian, if I'm right, puts a pretty good performance into this. It's definitely worth watching just for her, but actually her kids give really good performances as well as the new people she takes on as her servants. Besides that, this movie sports a lot of really good cinematography and editing. It's sort of stereotypical for a ghost story to be shot in the way that this is, and to have the style of editing that this does. But it has a number of really good twists and turns in the plot that sort of couple with this form of cinematography and editing that really works. There's a lot of specific rules in this movie about keeping these kids that are photosensitive away from bright light, specifically sunlight, and that's an interesting way to sort of frame the movie to be shot in. So there's a lot of darkness in this movie. There's a lot of low lighting, and the picture quality really sort of helps the fact that it has low lighting. We get very dark blacks, and we get very sort of warm colors because she's walking around with this this lantern or this little lamp that I'm assuming is probably propane or something like that, maybe kerosene lamp. Regardless, though, really, really interesting movie. I can't discuss it a lot because spoilers are so easy with this movie, but I do have to say I think it's one of the better ghost stories that I've seen in a long time. It's definitely original. It's got a lot of positive qualities to it. The only negative I can really say about this movie, and it's not a huge problem, but it is a problem, and I can't really review it without saying it. I instantly sort of compare almost all ghost story films to what is, in my opinion, the greatest ghost story film of all time, The Changeling from 1980, starring George C. Scott, directed by Peter Madoc. That movie is perfect in the way that it uses every single scene, somewhat economically, in fact, to create a specific feeling of dread and suspense and sadness and oppression. That movie does everything. Everything it does is to create a mood. And when I think about ghost story films, I feel a mood. This movie doesn't really have it. It's got a certain amount of it. It's not got a bad mood, and the tone of the movie works rather well, but it's not, I think, going for as much scares as either it should, or as much suspense even as it should. I do like the fact that it's a combination between somewhat of a mystery and a ghost story. That's something it shares with The Changeling. I like that it's a haunted house movie. I love the house. I love the way that's shot. And there's so many good performances here. Sometimes the kids get on my nerves. Nicole Kidman's children get on my nerves a little bit. But it's also not the worst. I gotta say, I think this is a rather well-crafted horror movie. It's not the best, also not the worst. I wouldn't maybe put it on my top 100 list, but I could see why it's there for many people. It's definitely incredibly well made and well acted and fairly well written. I only have really that one problem with it. Despite that, it's not a movie that I think I would rewatch many times over. Maybe a couple more times, but I'll definitely keep the DVD around. Definitely rewatch it a few times. Maybe when I'm in the mood for ghost stories, I'll throw this on. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I've got to say about The Others. I like it a lot. I think it's a fun movie. Definitely something that you have to watch, I think, as a horror fan. If you like modern horror, I think this came out in 2001. So, still kind of got that modern horror feel, but it's also got some classic feel because it's set in the 40s. And it's shot in that sort of flowing ghost story type of way that something like The Haunting would exhibit, or like I mentioned, The Changeling, or something like that. It feels that way, and so in that aspect, I've got to definitely recommend it. And as far as a rating, maybe give this one a 7 out of 10. Pretty strong 7 out of 10 too. Not the best movie, but also a rather good movie. That's kind of what I've got to say about it. So, thank you for watching. This is a definite plus to your collection if you've got it. It's also got tons of special features. It is one of those Dimension Collector's Editions. It should be in a big pack. As you can see, this has been drastically shortened and cut apart and stuff to fit into this small thing. And in fact, the front disc keeps popping out, which is, I think that's actually disc 2, but yeah, this is what we got going on here. It's a rental copy. I'm okay with it. It looks fine, sounds fine. If you can find it on Blu-ray, it'd probably be okay, but I think, honestly, your DVD's a good enough bet as well. Thanks, guys, for watching. Rock on. If you like, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.